I'm recording now. We're on Pasuk Gimel. What's it called? So again, they're not part of Korach. Actually, the Gemara says that anyone that was part of Korach's gang did not get Nachala in Eretz Yisrael. Additionally, they say, our father didn't have any kids. We're going to get back to why that's important. And they say, Lama yigara shem avinu mitoch mishpachto. Literally, why should our father's name be lost from his family? Ki en lo ben, because he has no son. Tena lanu achuza betoch achei avinu. Give us a portion of the land amongst our father's kinsmen, like amongst our uncles. And Moshe hears them. Vayakrev Moshe et mishpatan lifnei Adonai. Moshe hears what they say, and now he goes and he speaks to God. Okay, we just read through these Pesukim once. Girls, what's going on here? Like, what do these girls want? You could use the chat if you want. What do they want? Why are they coming? What's important to them? What are their concerns here? Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, when someone's father dies, the land sons, like Yerusha or whatever, it goes to the sons. So they're upset that their father has no sons, and so they're like, why can't we get the land? And like they don't want their father's name to just be forgotten, and instead of nobody getting land or like nothing happening, like their father's name is just going to be forgotten. So they want to get the land so that at least they continue like their father's name and like.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said a lot of good points, and I see a lot of good points in the chat. Land, remembrance, to continue their father's name. They want the land to honor their family or their father. They want a family legacy. You're all right on point here. See, when we look, I want to go back to Pasuk Gimel here, right? Our father died. They don't feel the need to specify his sin. It's not important. Maybe it's not respectful. Maybe that's another way of saying, look, he died in some way, some calamity happened, and they can't attribute it to anything specific. But he wasn't part of Korach's gang. Okay, Moshe, like the Gemara says, they weren't worthy of land of getting land in Eretz Yisrael, but he is. But look at him. Ubanim lo hayulo. He didn't have children. That's not a sin. He didn't have children. He has daughters, right? But he didn't have boys. Girls, when it comes to Nachala in Eretz Yisrael, only boys inherit land. And for good reason. Think about it. Let's say, okay, a girl gets married to someone else from the tribe of Reuven. Then all of a sudden, what does the land get picked up with her to the tribe of Reuven? It's a very disorganized way. There won't be set boundaries. So we say, look, it goes according to the son. Whoever the son marries, it's going to stay in their land. It's going to stay in their portion. So that's why it only goes to the girls. Now, they say, and as you all pointed out, they're coming and they're speaking to Moshe. This is not something selfish. They're not concerned about themselves. They're concerned about their father's name, his memory. Now, well, I sort of answered my question, but what do you think that means, his name? We care about our father's name. Well, I mean, the truth is, you really all said it in the chat too, remembering him, honoring him. Now, how do you think, like, what would be a way of remembering someone? How does someone get remembered in this world? You could use the chat if you want. How would someone make their mark on this world that they're remembered? Like, you could think of modern times, and then we'll go to biblical times, like to make sure the memory is passed down. So
if they do something.
Yeah, Samantha, what?
If they do something like bigger than their name that outlasts them, let's say you make a huge company, and I guess for us, like the physical name gets passed out. Like my grandchildren is going to be Samantha, you know?
Right. Okay, so you're saying a few things here. So you're saying either an action that they do, and I see in the chat, chesed, they make a big change. But you also mentioned Samantha, like having a grandchild named Samantha, right? Having something in the name. Ginger said, by what they leave behind physically, or if they changed other people, create a charity in honor of that person. They make something that changes how they live. I think these are all practical ways, naming a building right after that person. Definitely in modern times, that for sure happens. In biblical times, girls, it happens in two ways. One, it's by your children. Having children that will pass down your name. And 2, it's having a nachala. Now, I think we understand the children piece, especially in our community, right? Where you literally see your namesake. I love when I see a grandparent with their grandchild with their exact name. It's so special. It's so interesting, actually. Side point parentheses. Like other people from other communities, they're like, that's a little weird. No. If you have like when you get older and you start going to different colleges and you spread out and you meet more Ashkenaz people, and they'll be like, what's going on here? Like, why is there a child that's alive with a parent that's alive? But it's so beautiful, I think. Again, there's something to that. But there's also the Torah talks about having an achuzah, having land. Now, I want to talk about why land is so important. First of all, what do you think? Why is land so important? Who cares? You could put it in the chat if you want. Why is land so important? And having an Eretz Yisrael, and maybe connecting it to the name piece. So there's actually, because you're known for having this land, okay, it becomes yours. There's a pasuk in Kohelet. It's promised and, yes, Samantha? Oh, promised land. That's what you meant to write. So I think, girls, there's a pasuk in Kohelet which says, "Dor holech ve'dor ba v'ha'aretz le'olam omedet." Right? A generation comes, a generation goes, but the land will always be there. Right? Generations are secured. But yeah, think about it like this. Let's say your grandpa got the land. Okay. Now, when he passes away, he's going to give it to his son, and now his son is going to work on the land. Right? And he's going to say, "Grandpa got this land. He planted that tree over there. And I'm also working the land." Then he's going to give it to his child. Your great grandpa, he worked that land. He put the tree, and I put the olive garden over there, right? That vineyard. That's something I did. It's a way of passing down your name. This is a serious way in the Torah of passing down your name through your land. And this is something Hazi, Selofchad didn't have just because he didn't have sons. So his daughters now stand up and they are insistent on keeping their father's name alive. This is not okay. This is not fair to their father. Yeah, Yael.
This reminds me of like Megillah Ruth, because like she had to like the whole thing was like that they needed to save the family's name of Elimelech. Like they needed to save Elimelech's name. So Ruth was trying to help Naomi like buy the land back, and like, you know what I mean? I feel like it reminds me so much of
Yael, you are right on point. And you are correct. I could tell you that the Gemara says that when Benot Selofchad came along, that was actually the discussion that was happening. They were talking about Yibum. And because that's another way of keeping someone's name alive. So great point, great connection. So they come. Now, I just want you to think, girls, these are Selofchad's daughters, okay? What do you want to say about Selofchad as a father? What kind of father was he? Put it in the chat, just based on what his daughters did. What do you want to say about Daddy Selofchad? I'm going to use the chat so everyone can answer if you want. What do you want to say about Selofchad? Imagine, these are the kids he raised. So what? He was motivating, maybe. Trained his daughters to be proactive. Love that. Values, he definitely had values. You could see a lot based on what the kids are, where they're coming from, right? Apparently, they had a great dad who raised daughters that loved him and actually cared about keeping his name alive, right? They could have just went on their way and just like not cared, but they respected their father and honored that. And that definitely came through from Daddy Selofchad. And now, also, girls, if we go back to Pasuk Aleph, remember we said, oh my gosh, what's with all these words going all the way back to Yosef, right? Okay, why can't we just say they're from the tribe of Menashe? But if you think about it, it's not random. Rashi says on the spot, Lemishpechotam Menashe ben Yosef, he says, Lama ne'emar, why is it telling us all the way back to Yosef? V'halo kvar amar ben Menashe, ela lomar lecha, to tell you, Yosef Yosef loved the land. He told his brothers, guys, bring up my bones. And because he wanted to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, even though he was in Mitzrayim. And Yosef was able to pass that down to his kids. And his kids were able to pass that down to their kids, guys, all the way from Tiselofcha to his daughters. He kept that alive. I think it really tells you a lot about values and something that's important to you to think about. Eretz Yisrael is important in our family. But I just have a practical question. How do you think Daddy Selofchad taught this to his girls? Like, did he wake up every day and say, we love Israel? Like, is that what he did? You know, how do you teach your kids? How do you teach your sister? How do you teach your siblings to love something or that something is important to you? Like, you could say straight out, honesty is important, but like, come on, what did he do practically to tell this to his kids? You could use the chat. What do you think? How do you give to the land? What do you mean by that, Vivian? I don't know if you could speak, talk about it, celebrate the holidays maybe. Oh, I see. Being a good role model by showing his own love for Israel. Yes, he didn't have to say like put up signs and say, I love Israel, but the way he acted, right? The way you act, girls, shows people what's important to you, teaching them, right? Or maybe he's like, yes, guys, we're almost there. We're closer. We're almost by Eretz Yisrael, showing them how excited he was, right? And his kids were excited. And they were ready, girls, to stand up in front of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Nesi'im, the Kohen HaGadol. Again, think about it yourself, standing up and speaking and saying, our father didn't have kids. This is not okay. And because of them, girls, I want to show you this language. It's so awesome. It says here, wait, not yet. That's in a second. They come close, benot zelafchad. Look at the beauty of the Torah, of the language here. Vatikravna benot zelafchad. They come close. Vaikrav Moshe. Moshe comes close to God. The same verb is used. And then look at what God says. Ken benot zelafchad doverot. What the benot zelafchad said, they're correct. And because of them, girls, they're right. They are going to get nachala amongst their uncles. And by the way, you should know, if a guy dies and he doesn't have a kid, we're going to give it to his daughter. And then it continues. And if he doesn't have a daughter, we're going to give it to his brothers. And if he doesn't have his brothers, and the Torah continues. But isn't that so awesome, girls? Think about it. Because of them, this law was not written in the Torah yet. This law is now written in the Torah because of them. I mean, I think that's just like awesome. So just like reflecting on Benot Zelafchad, what do we want to say about them? Come on, what do we think about them so far? Benot Zelafchad, describe them. How would you describe them? Use the chat. How would you describe Benot Zelafchad? They lead by example. Yes. Strong values and passionate, for sure. They come, they approach the leaders, they feel something is important and they say it. They're not afraid. Look, actually, they might have been afraid. Honestly, they might have been shivering in their boots, like, shoot, we're about to speak in front of the leaders of the generation. But they go, yes, they're inspiring, they're proactive. And I want you to think about this too. Like, let's say I just told you, yeah, you want to add something too?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I feel like Hashem could have just given us all the laws, but like he's choosing not to so that we could ask questions and get closer to him. Like he doesn't want everyone to just know everything and be like, oh, this is law, this is the law. He wants everyone to ask questions and be like, yes, this is what you're supposed to do. Like point it out, make it like big.
For sure. And girls,
you know what I mean
100%. And I think what you're pointing to, Yael, is that in general, who here wants to tell me that they don't like stories? If you tell me that, I won't believe you. I love stories. You want to tell me a story? Go for it. It's fun, right? Even if it's like a small thing, it just makes something more interesting, right? So now think about this. Instead of just listing laws in the Torah, which often happens, and that's okay. Now we as readers are more likely to remember this law that women can inherit land because of Benot Zelofchad. Right? The Torah chooses to now record this law with this narrative, with this story, which will really ingrain it in our mind. Educationally, that's just a better way to do it. Now, So we shouldn't be surprised, by the way. I want to show you this. Rashi says about Benot Zelofchad, let me share my screen again. Where is it? Here it is. Rashi says, he says, when talking about Benot Zelofchad in Pasuk Dalet, he says, Tena lanu achuza betoch achei avinu. Rabbi Natan Omer, Yafeh koach nashim mikoach anashim. Women's strength are so much better than men. Okay, let's see why. Well, anashim omrim netena rosh v'nashuva mitzrayma. Remember a few parakim ago, b'midbar girls, the meraglim. After we heard about the meraglim, the men said, notice the anashim say, let's go back to Egypt. And these women come along and say, give us achuzah in the land, right? The Chazal start comparing women and men. That's interesting. It doesn't stop here, okay? There are other pieces of Chazal that say that the women didn't even sin in Chet HaEgel, right? So the men were the active ones taking the jewelry off the women. And I'm sure there's a beautiful statement of Chazal that you all know that goes like this. It says, Besachar nashim sitzkaniyot, because of righteous women, Shahayu be'ato hador, in this generation, nigalu avotenu mitzrayim. Because of the women, we were redeemed from Egypt. Right? Did anyone ever hear that before? Right, it's a famous statement, because of the women, yeah. So now, speaking of women, when I hear that statement, my mind actually jumps to other women in the Torah. Because girls, I think women are a little bit underrated. I think as women, sometimes you think, we don't really speak about the women, but I don't think that's so true. I think there are other instances. And actually, right at the start of Shemot, we hear about women, okay? Shemot Perek Aleph. Right at the start, okay? I want you to just imagine this. Girls, you go to ancient Egypt. Paro is a god, okay? In the Egyptians, Paro is, you know the Midrash with the Nilus, how he would go out in the morning because he didn't want anyone to know that he has to go to the bathroom, and he's like a god, right? This is how they viewed this man. Now, Paro comes to the Me'aldot, and he says, where is it? He says, where is it? When the Ivriyot give birth, and you see them on the birthing stool, if it's a ben, kill him. V'in batu b'chaya. But if it's a girl, keep her alive. Okay? These women hear this. Girls, if they disobey Paro, what's going to happen to them? What are they risking right now? Just call it out.
They're risking their lives.
They're risking their lives. So they have a challenge in front of them. We could, take the easy, listen to Paro and not get killed, or look at the pasuk, it's amazing. Vatirena hamealdot et haElohim. They feared God and not Paro, who saw himself as a god. Velo asu kasher diber alehem melech Mitzrayim. They don't listen to Paro, and they keep all the children alive. Right from the start, girls, of the Mitzrayim narrative, right, when Bnei Yisrael are starting to get comfortable in Egypt, already the women we see are the active ones, acting positively. And Paro says, "What are you doing?" And the Me'aldot say, "Look, they're not like the Egyptians. They come and they already give birth. They make excuses and they get zachar from God." But you already see that these women are making changes. The women are the change makers. Now, next perek, girls. Before I get there, does anyone know who the next woman in Sefer Shemot is that makes a big, huge difference? Any women come to mind? Miriam, how so?
He wash Moshe when he was going down the lake. He told her father, like, you're worse than Paro because like you're discriminating against if it's a boy and if it's a girl.
Oh, right. Okay, so you're going to now Miriam. The Midrash says that Moshe's parents didn't want to have children because how are we going to have children to this terrible generation? Miriam speaks up and says, "What do you mean? You got to have kids," and convinces her parents to have kids. Yes, according to the Midrash for sure. According to the Peshat, also Miriam does something. She goes to the Ye'or. She watches as Moshe is in the suf, in the reeds. This is a side story, parentheses, but it's fun, so I can't help myself. So last week on Friday, I went paddleboarding. It's very fun. I recommend it. In Manasquan, I went with my sister Samantha and my other sister Alexandra, and I saw reeds. Oh wait, with my brother also the previous week. We went kayaking. Paddleboarding was the next week. And I said, "Guys, you see those reeds? What are you thinking of?" And, you know, like, cause I always, you know, I'm trying to connect it to Tanakh, and my brother got it. He's like, yeah, Moshe. I just screamed it across the lake. So I hope that was okay, but whatever. Anyway, so Moshe in the reads, we hear about another woman here who you would never, you would least expect it, girls. Bat Par'ah, okay? The daughter of Par'ah, right? The Pharaoh of Egypt is disobeying her father. Did we ever think about that? I think it'd be very cool to like make a skit of Bat Par'ah, her life in the palace, how she raised Moshe, how she had the guts to do that. Look at this pasuk, girls. So here, so this exactly like Mazal was saying, that midrash is connected to this pasuk. This Ish Levi, Amram, and Yocheved come along, and they have a child, and they see that he's good. They hide him, and they know that that they have to get rid of him. And Bat Par'ah goes out, and she sees this teva, and look at this. And again, the daughter of Par'ah, Vatiftach, Vatirehu et hayeled, vehine nar boche. She sees a child crying. Vatachmal alav. And she has mercy on this child. And she says, Atomid me'aldei ha'ivrim zeh. Girls, I just want you to imagine again. You hear a woman, again, she hears the baby crying, and there's no way. She's Egyptian. She is the daughter of Par'ah. There's no way she could just let him go. And she ends up figuring out a way with Miriam to have this child live. And again, the Torah really doesn't, what happens while he's growing up in the house of Par'ah? How do we explain this baby that we just found from the Nile, right? It's interesting to think about how to recreate that story. But again, we see women taking action, women doing what is right. And I think it's really amazing because we're thinking about, but we thought about Benat Zelafchand in the beginning. And then we spoke about the Me'aldot. And now we're speaking about Bat Par'ah. And I want us to really think about, what gives them the power to act as they do? Feel free to use the chat. How do they do what they do? What's pushing them? What's motivating them? And then I want us to think about, how could we become more like them? Because I think ultimately we're reading the Torah, but we have to think about how to, now what about us? Oh, also like Yael and Sisra, excellent. Another woman who takes action. You're right, Yael. Again, so the question is, what causes these women to do what they do? What's pushing them forward? What do you think? And then again, how could we become more like them? Justice, that's a value of theirs, for sure. I think, so it's actually really interesting. So a little show and tell here. So I'm reading this book. So basically, let me tell you about this book. Let me tell you another story. In graduate school for Jewish education, I had this professor. His name was Dr. Pelkovitz. He was amazing, and I love him. And I'm like, you know what? I should just buy all of his books. So I just decided to buy books that he wrote, or I thought he wrote this book, but he didn't. He just wrote that he liked this book. Whatever, it's a good book anyways. So in this book, which I'm going to show you, it's very cool. It looks like it's raining every time you look at the book. I don't know if you could see from the screen. You see it's like a little wet. One time, okay, funny story. I don't know if Samantha's still on. She is, so she'll hear. I was walking home. She's like, oh my gosh, Victoria, it rained. Meanwhile, it's like 100 degrees out. I'm like, no, come closely, look at the book. So this book is about mindfulness. And so he actually, something he writes in this book relates to what we're talking about. So again, so I asked you, just sorry about that story. How did all these women, how do they have the ability to do what they do? And you guys answered justice, defying other opinions, confidence. So this author of the book, his name is Rabbi Jonathan Feiner. And in one of the chapters where he talks about mindfulness and thinking about your own character, he talks about decision-making. And he says that decision-making in our lives comes down to two things. Okay. Usually people have a decision and you could make two choices. You could either take the easier choice here, right? The smiley face that's easy at first, and then they'll get harder later. Or you could make the decision that's harder in the beginning, but eventually might get good, right? So we all want, sometimes, okay, you start something and it's just hard. So I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to choose this. I'd rather do something else. I'd rather take the easier way out, which is easier in the short run, but not in the long run. Now, the hard and challenging way is to really do this path, okay? To do what's hard at first and end up you'll be happy in the end. So now, like, think of these women, these Mayaldot. They're not taking the easy route, the smiley face route. They're putting their lives in danger, but they think about their values and what's important to them. They fear God. They recognize that there's Borei Olam, and this is not something that ultimately, at the end of the day, that they'll be proud of. So they're not going to take this easy route. Or Bat Par'ah. Bat Par'ah also, she's in a really tough spot. She finds a child in the Nile, in the reeds, and look, she could take this baby and put her life on the line, and that's the dangerous area. Or she could just let it go, and okay, she might be sad in the end that she made a child die, but she doesn't want to lose her own life. But not Tzalofchad. They have to do something really scary. They have to get up and speak in front of very important individuals. Moshe, Elazar, think of yourself, speaking in front of people that you really respect. It's not easy, but they decide, look, our Father's name is too important to us. We can't just take the easy way out. We're going to have to stand up and do what we got to do. We're going to take the hard road. Yeah, Yael, do you want to add something?
Yeah, also Megillat Esther, she had to risk her life. It was either her going to the king, and she fears the king so much, either have to go to him, or she would have been the savior would have came from someone else, because she could either choose to go the hard way or she could go the easy way, but not as it's bad, but it's from someone else, you know what I mean?
No, excellent example. Look, should we be surprised, girls? Another woman, again, in a hard, it's a very hard decision that she has to do. But she sees the long run. She sees, okay, now what will I be proud of? I know it's harder. Girls, oftentimes in life, unfortunately, the things that are worth it are not easy. And it takes pain and it takes challenge. And girls, I promise this actually came in handy for me last Shabbat. Rabbi Feiner has this acronym. He says, to help us choose the right path we can try to be bold. Okay, remember this acronym, it will really help you. Bold, breathe slowly. Okay, so now you're in the moment, okay? Something happens and you have a decision to make. So let's say someone asks you, okay, you buy this sink and your mother asks you to do something else for you. And you're like, oh shoot, I don't really want to do this. Okay, so now you take these steps. Okay, I'm giving you a real life example. Bold, breathe, slow down. Observe, okay, what am I thinking? Be aware of what you're feeling in your body, your emotions. And then this is the harder part. Listen to values. Right now, what kind of person do we want to be? What path do we want to travel down? It's so easy to just be quick about this. But you have to just think long term, what will I be proud of? Am I going to be guilty if I don't do this? What's important to me? Is honoring my parents important to me? So that's the L. And then D, decide on actions and do them. Choose action that reflect our values. So again, it's being bold. And I think it really comes down to the values. So what's important to me? What will I be proud of? Just remember these this acronym. Now, so I want to sort of step back and reflect on what we spoke about today. So I'm going to pause here for a second, just so I could stop sharing. So we started out speaking about Benot Tzalofchad, right? And we said their father was apparently a great daddy who was able to pass down the importance of Eretz Yisrael, just like from Yosef. So again, and they honored him greatly. They wanted to pass down his name. Now, they stood up and they acted boldly, and they realized that this is important to us. We're going to stand up in front of these leaders. We spoke about, really women in general are just the stepping stones. There's Bat Par'ah, there's the Mayaldot, who, whether are Jewish or not, they just had that in them. And then we really came home to us. And to speak about, at the end of the day, in our daily lives, when something pops up and we're not sure what to do, is it important to us? We have to think back to these steps. Be bold. Breathe, observe, what am I thinking? What is my body feeling right now? Think of your values and then decide, what will I be proud of at the end of the week? I think we all have it in us. I think as the Torah is telling us that we have it in us as women, I think we have a great strength. I think if we really think about what's important to us, knowing that will really guide us through. And thinking again, at the end of the week, I think when Shabbat comes along and you sort of reflect, think about what will I be proud of? When you think of your week at the end of the week, what did I do this week that I may be proud of? What did I do this week that I'm not proud of? Keeping that in mind, because ultimately that will help us move forward and, change ourselves, change the people around us, change the world, change our children, right? It all starts at home. It all starts with us. And yeah, that's this week's Perasha. Woo!
Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you. Loved
This
it.
is so nice. Thank you so much,
Great
Chad.
class.
I
Such
loved
a
it.
pleasure.
So
Love seeing you,
nice.
girls.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Yes, I'll see you.